It is Wednesday, July 30th, and we're going to spend some time talking about some of the lessons that we can take away from the 24 hours of tapping. Welcome to Wednesdays with Gene. I am the eponymous Gene Montestelli. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we get together, we do a little tapping, we do a little learning, trying to expand the tool set as you navigate your way through the world using these amazing tools. Thanks for being here with me. This is all presented by the Tapping Mastery Academy, which is a training program that I love. At some point, I'd love for you to join me in that. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. Today, what I wanted to do is I just wanted to recap and talk about some of the really amazing things that happened in the 24 hours of tapping from a learning point of view. I was one of the few people who saw all 24 hours of it because I talked and interacted with every single person that was interviewed and led those. And so what I want to do today is I want to spend a little time and share some of those learnings with you. Before we do that, as always, what we're going to do is we're just going to take 90 seconds, put ourselves in our body, do a little wordless tapping. So what I want you to do is just start by tapping on the side of your hand, take a nice big deep breath, scan your system, and just move from tapping point to tapping point as we work our way through this, and just move at the rate that makes the most sense for you. And if something comes up that you need to focus on, do exactly that. And if something comes bubbling up, jot that down. And as you're scanning your body, make sure you scan your whole body, not just your upper body. I have a tendency when I'm scanning to stop at my hips where I bend when seating like this. Nice big stretch. Move around. Maybe grab a little sip of water. If insights came bubbling up as you're tapping your way through that, make sure you jot those down. Maybe a to-do showed up, a to-do showed up for me as we were doing that I don't want to lose. So make sure you write down what's going on. Thanks to folks checking in the chat box. We got folks in Oregon and Sweden and Honduras and New York City. Feel free to say hi as we work our way through all of this. Okay, so before we jump in, just a couple of quick notes. Number one, this Sunday, we're running another version of Tapping for Pets as a fundraiser for the Peaceful Heart Network, so we can kind of continue the momentum of all the funds that we have raised in the last couple of weeks. It's one of my favorite programs to do. And then next week, right here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to talk about stop being loyal to the person who got you stuck. Oftentimes, we have a hard time changing the past because we are dedicated to the previous version of ourselves. And we're going to talk about how we can still love and care younger versions of ourselves without being stuck in the decisions that it made. You can find the entire playlist of all of these Wednesdays. We've been going at it since December of last year, WednesdaysWithGene.com. You'll see the full playlist. Tapping Mastery Academy, more information, tappingqa.com/TMA. And if you would like to join us this weekend at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, where we do some Tap It for Pets, I got a whole bunch of extra bonuses and downloads and stuff that go along with that. Tappingforpets.com will get you all the information so you can join us. So With that being said, I just want to talk about, there was lots of really, really, really amazing ideas that came across over the course of the 24 hours of tapping. If you go to 24hoursoftapping.com/playlist, you can see a replay of not only last year, but all 4 years. There's over 120 conversations there. Every topic under the sun has been talked about. So you can check all of that out there. 24hoursoftapping.com/playlist. And it'll give you a chance to dive into that because there's just some really good, useful, dynamic stuff inside of that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight some of the things that struck me in those conversations. One of the hard parts about hosting an event like that is I'm doing all of these moving parts. One of the good parts is I get an opportunity to be present and engaged with every single thing that we go through. And so this is not the 5 most important things. This isn't the 5 best things. But as I was thinking back and looking at my notes from the experience, here are 5 things that really resonated with me that transforms the way I do healing and transformation. And hopefully they are helpful for you as well. So number 1, let's see if we got our little numbers going on. There we go. Number 1, the number 1 thing that came through over and over and over again is this idea of how our system is just trying to keep us safe. Every single time there is a piece of resistance, every single time our critical voice fires off, every single time we want to do something and we don't do it, the reason that that is happening is because our system wants us to be safe. Now, you'll notice in that particular description, I'm not saying the system is keeping us safe. Instead, I'm saying the system wants us to be safe. And so what that does for me when I sit down to do work is it helps me not to be in conflict with my system. Because so often when we sit down, we're in a circumstance where it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this, and oh, the critical voice is in the way. And it's appropriate and it's well informed to have those emotional responses to the fact that we're stuck, to the fact that intellectually I know exactly what I want to do, and emotionally I'm not doing it and I'm holding myself back. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be frustrated or disappointed or angry or any of those negative emotions when we're in a circumstance where we're not acting in the way that we want. But when I engage with my system, when I engage with the beliefs, when I engage with the resistance from the point of view of it's trying to keep me safe, it then gives me a vocabulary to engage with it. The part of me that is keeping me quiet is trying to keep me safe because it doesn't want me to be judged or it doesn't want me to be seen in a negative way. The part of me that doesn't necessarily like the way that I look wants me to look a certain way because it feels like it's safer in the world if I am acceptable. Now, again, as I say those things out loud, intellectually, we understand how those don't necessarily resonate. Intellectually, we understand how those are not true. But that's the place the system is operating from. And so when we're in a situation where we recognize the system is just trying to keep us safe, it makes it easier for us not to accept what the system is doing, but to work with what the system is doing when we're in that circumstance. So that's idea number 1. The system is just trying to keep us safe. Number 2, the subconscious mind, which is just trying to keep us safe, is just following the rules. That, even when I am tapping, and this came up a number of times in the conversation, we talk about how we personify a part. This part is trying to keep me safe by, or the reason I'm feeling angry is because a part of me wants. Like we're giving the system agency. We're acting like it is making decisions. But instead, it's not. It's just following rules. And these rules are predictions about what is going to happen in the world. Our subconscious mind is just a really, really, really sophisticated prediction model. And here's an example. I hear a dog barking. My subconscious mind goes, there is an angry creature with big teeth nearby. So based off of a sound, it is predicting what is an outcome. And since it's predicting there's a big nasty dog that might be dangerous, I get tight, I get tense, I get fear, I stop in my tracks. And so the system is just following a rule. A rule says when dog is present, there is danger, therefore act in this particular way. And so when we're tapping on our limiting beliefs, when we're tapping on the things that we are struggling with, What we're really doing is we are trying to change the rules. One of the things that when we had the conversation with Dr. David Feinstein about the mechanisms of tapping, one of the things that he helped us to talk about is when we're providing a reframe, what we're doing is we're providing a prediction error. Now, again, it's a predictive model, and what we're saying is I'm giving it information that violates its prediction. So go to our dog. I hear a dog barking. I think danger. Well, what if it's a friendly dog that's just excited to see people? What if it just wants some attention because it's hungry? What if, and so it's a reframe. I'm just providing a reframe. And so it's predicting the dog is going to be dangerous. And what I'm saying instead is, well, maybe not. Maybe it is something different. And so since I have new information, maybe the dog is angry, or maybe the dog is hungry, or maybe the dog wants attention. Now, when I hear the dog barking, the prediction algorithm that is my subconscious mind might predict something else. I notice the difference between a and a both of them are dogs making lots of noise, but there's a difference if there is a growl and snarl to it versus it just being loud. I'm in a circumstance where there are people that it is not safe for me to share certain details, whether it doesn't feel that way. And there are people who are. And if I'm in a circumstance where I believe that no one actually wants to hear about me, the prediction model says if I share personal details, then everybody is going to make fun of me. But that's the rule. I say personal things, the outcome is. That's all the subconscious mind is doing, is it's following rules and it's predicting what's going on. But what if I recognize, the people in my family, or the people in my cohort, or my best friend, or some setting where it is safe for me to share certain details with them? And so when I'm tapping, yes, it's true. People might judge me for sharing this, but I know my really close friend is open to hearing this and actually wants to support me inside of this. And so what that does is it transforms the rule that is going on inside of there. So the rule goes from, it is unsafe for me to share information, to, it is unsafe for me to share information sometimes, and it's safe for me to share personal information with this person, with that person in this setting. It's safe for me to share a certain type of personal information. Like we're adding context to those rules so we know how to navigate what is going on. If you are a regular driver, there are rules about how you drive. And if it's snowing, you should have another set of rules of how you drive. When it's snowing, I am less likely to be listening to a podcast and more likely to be in silence so I can pay attention to what is going on. I am not going over the speed limit. I might be going under the speed limit. I might choose to go on certain roads and not in certain roads. And so based on the context, the rules tell me to act in a different way. And so when we're tapping, all we're doing is, insight number one, subconscious mind is trying to keep us safe. Insight number two, the safety is through a set of rules in the subconscious mind. And so when we're creating change, all we're doing is we're rewriting those rules into an effective way. So, idea number three, there is lots of suffering in the world, and there is lots of overcoming of suffering. And we got to see that in multiple ways. We got to see that in terms of the work that the Peaceful Heart Network is doing. We got that when we had the opportunity to talk to the men inside of the Heart Program at the Chesterfield County Jail and to hear about Carrie Rhodes and the amazing work that she's doing with the men and women there. But also, every single person who was talking about an issue, when we talked about relationships and taking action and sobriety and being grounded in ourselves, over and over and over again, these stories were about people who, in the work that they're doing, there's overcoming. And so sometimes it is just good and useful for us to remember and to be inspired by other success stories. Like when we say something is inspirational, we're not saying what has happened is good, but what we're saying is it is motivating us, it is inspiring me to take a new action. Inspiration has a consequence. I believe something new. Or I'm stoking the fire of a belief. And so in the face of so much struggle, in the face of so much hardship, in the face of so many things that are difficult in the world at this moment in history and at every moment in history, it's so useful and it's so vital for us to remember that, yes, there is pain, yes, there is suffering, and yes, there is so much overcoming of that. So, idea number 3, there's suffering in the world and there's lots of overcoming it. Number 4, and this is a piece of vocabulary that Ulf and Gunilla shared at the beginning of the 24 hours. And then as I brought it up in multiple places along the way, lots of people jumped in and carried on. We had lots of great conversations about it. And that is around the vocabulary of, there's a difference between being trauma-informed and trauma-competent. Trauma-informed simply means I have information about trauma. And for a very long time, we've talked about how important it is to be trauma-informed. And it's good to be aware of how trauma impacts something, or to be aware that trauma is present. But just because I am aware that trauma is impacting what is going on, just because I'm aware that trauma is present, it does not mean I know what to do. And so that is the difference between trauma-informed and trauma-competent. It's an awareness versus knowing what to do. I am automotively informed. I know when my car is not working. I know when smoke or things are leaking out of, or stuff's coming out of the engine, or it's making a silly noise. I know my engine is not working effectively. But just because I am automotively informed does not mean I am automotively competent. I have no idea what to do with those things other than to call an expert. And so we live in a time where it is appropriate and it is safe for us to have so many more conversations about trauma and how trauma informs what is going on. In so many movies, the primary initiating force for the character motivation is the trauma that they are working through and healing. And it is great that we are aware of that. But just because I know trauma is present doesn't mean I know how to respond to it. So as we are aware of trauma in the world, that is just the first step. The next step is recognizing how we engage with that. So for me, I have a priority stack of how I engage with the work that I do. And the priority stack is safe, ethical, useful. So before I do anything, those are the lenses I look through, and I look through in that order. Is the thing I'm about to do safe or not? If the answer is no, we stop. No other question matters. If it's safe, is it an ethical choice? Then, if it's safe and it's ethical, then I go, okay, is the choice actually useful? Like, that's the lenses that I go through really quickly. And when I'm teaching, when I'm doing work on my own, I'm assuming I'm working from safe and ethical. Like, that is just hopefully a foundation of what's going on. But as we engage with this stuff, again, like sometimes a little knowledge is really, really dangerous. I know where the trauma is, therefore I want to tap, and I want you to talk about what's going on. One of the reasons why the Peaceful Heart Network does a wordless intervention, they do lots of tapping without words, is because when Gunilla was a journalist in East Africa, and she was interviewing people about the state of the world and war and famine and all the horrible things that she was covering as a journalist, because that was her job, she realized that having people retell their stories was actually re-traumatizing them. So she was aware of the trauma. She was trauma-informed. But just being trauma-informed, that's the reason why the work that they do is shaped the way it is. It's trauma-competent. And so as we are engaging with work, it is important for us to recognize not identifying the problem is not enough. How we respond to it is important. And there are times in which we are not equipped and we are not capable of doing that. And that's when we call someone in. That's when we get help. That it is okay. My car has issues. It makes sense that I call an expert. My heart has issues. It makes sense that I have experts. My emotional heart has issues. It makes sense I call an expert. So there is a difference. Number 4, there's a difference between trauma-informed and trauma-competent. And if we are going to respond to something that is going on, we need to be trauma-competent, not just trauma-informed. And then, finally, number 5, sometimes the work we need to do is to simply witness the emotion we are experiencing. One of the things that we do so often is we move really, really quickly because we want relief. I always joke about the fact that every single time I sit down to tap, I want total, eternal, instant transformation. That's all. Total, eternal, instant transformation. Makes it so much easier if that was the case. And because I want that, I want the root cause, I want the initial sensitizing event, I want to bring the reframes. And those are all good, useful things in their time. And it was amazing the number of conversations that we had over the 24 hours where people were talking about just being present, just being present, just being present. I'm really angry. 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 And feeling and leaning into that anger. Doing that is so powerful. And sometimes that is enough to create the transformation that we need. And the beautiful part about that is I can always just notice. I'm really angry. How do I know I'm angry? Oh, chattery thoughts. I'm really angry. How do I know it? Ooh, there's fire behind my eyes. I'm really angry. How do I know it? My teeth are clenching. My teeth are clenching. There's fire behind my eyes. And that's all I need to do. And when we give ourselves permission to simply notice, it makes a huge difference. So, 5 ideas that I took away from the 24 hours of tapping. Number 1, the system is always trying to keep us safe. Doesn't mean it is, but that is its motivation. Number 2, the subconscious mind is simply following the rules of what it thinks is going to happen, and it's responding from those rules to keep us safe. And so therefore our work is finding the rules that are incomplete, that are inaccurate, add context, and to transform them. Number 3, there is lots of suffering in the world, and there's lots of overcoming of that suffering. Number 4, we need to be trauma competent, not just trauma informed when we're going to be helpful. And number 5, sometimes the only work we need to do is witness. So those were some of the things that I really, really loved from this year's 24 hours of tapping. Again, you can dive in and watch every single one of the conversations we have. It is sitting in the archive. All you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/playlist. It will bring it up in reverse chronological order, starting with the last presentation that happened on Saturday of this year. But as you go through it, you'll be able to do 2025, 2024, 2023, 2022. There is something that is waiting there for you. Please, please, please dive in and enjoy that stuff. Our speakers gave their time and their attention. And as a side note, if a speaker said something like these lessons that are coming away, if a speaker said something that really touched you, go to their social media feed, go to their website, go somewhere and leave a comment, send them an email, let them know that what they shared was useful. As someone who creates content, it is always so nice to know what I'm putting out into the world is actually making a difference. They gave their time, they gave their attention. They might have even invited you from their mailing list to join us. Let them know by saying thank you to that particular thing. Awesomeness. So, quick footnotes before we go. Tappingpodcast.com. There's 667 episodes waiting for you, absolutely free. There's amazing interviews. There's tap-alongs. There's instruction. If you'd like to join us in the Tapping Mastery Academy, tappingqna.com/TMA for all the details. This Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to do some Tapping for Pets. That's tappingforpets.com. Tappingforpets.com. Join us there. It is a fundraiser for the Peaceful Heart Network. And as always, if you want to look at the archives and the replays of all the stuff we've been doing here on Wednesdayswithgene.com is where you can find that particular playlist. Awesomeness. Well, thanks for hanging out with me this week. We are going to be back here next week on the 30th. And when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can stop being loyal to younger versions of ourselves to allow healing and transformation. Those of you watching this after the fact, on the screen in just a moment, you're going to see an entire playlist of every single episode in the Wednesdays with Gene catalog. Got a question, drop us a note at support@tappingqna.com. Thanks for hanging out with me live or after the fact, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.